There's a scramble happening across dimensions, and you can feel it deep in your bones. The atmosphere around you has become charged, not with chaos, but with revelation. Energies are shifting, old masks are cracking, and every imitation of your essence is being dragged into the light. You might not see it with your physical eyes yet, but on the energetic plane, the stage is set, and every pretender is taking their place in a play that exposes itself scene by scene. Imitation, chosen one, has activated exposure. The moment they tried to mirror your frequency without carrying your truth, the universe began to rearrange itself to reveal what's real and what's rehearsed. You have to understand, your energy is not something that can be replicated because it was never learned, it was earned. It was sculpted through storms, refined through solitude, and sanctified through suffering. The glow you carry didn't come from filters or formulas. It came from facing your shadows until they bowed to your light. So when others attempt to mimic your essence without having walked through your fire, the universe refuses to co-sign the counterfeit. Their imitation sets off alarms in realms they don't even believe in. Every false vibration begins to echo against itself until it collapses, revealing the hollow sound of pretense. You are witnessing the great unmasking. What once passed as confidence now looks like performance. What once appeared as authority now stumbles under its own insecurity. They're not just scrambling to match you, they're scrambling to hide the fact that they can't. Their imitation has triggered divine exposure, and there's no hiding from what's unfolding. The more they reach for your essence, the more transparent they become. The more they try to embody your frequency, the more their vibration stutters. The universe has a cruel sense of humor when it comes to authenticity. It will let someone copy your walk, your talk, even your style, but it will never allow them to carry your power. You see, chosen one, your energy carries a signature. It's like a divine watermark that can't be forged. It vibrates at a frequency that announces, "This one has earned their light." Every word you speak carries the echo of lifetimes lived with intention. Every step you take leaves an imprint of consciousness that only truth can produce. So when someone tries to wear your light like a costume, the universe exposes it immediately. It's almost comical how loud the exposure gets. The very energy they try to emulate rejects them, as if your essence itself refuses to be misused. In the unseen, their scrambling looks frantic, like actors realizing mid-performance that the script they stole doesn't make sense without the soul that wrote it. You've become the mirror that reveals every pretender. The moment they stand next to you, the contrast becomes undeniable. Their energy flickers. Their words lose rhythm. Their rehearsed charisma starts to feel forced. You don't even have to say anything. Your authenticity does the talking. Your peace speaks volumes. Your aura declares the truth before your lips move. They thought they could copy your confidence, but they didn't understand that your confidence wasn't built on control. It was born from surrender. They thought they could copy your abundance, not realizing that your abundance flows from alignment, not appearance. They thought they could mirror your wisdom, but wisdom isn't collected, it's cultivated through wounds that taught you how to see. They thought they could mimic your spirituality, but your connection to the divine isn't performance, it's partnership. They thought they could study your moves and decode your success, but the formula they're seeking is not external, it's internal. It's frequency. It's integrity. It's the way you stay rooted in truth even when the world tries to shake you. Every time they try to copy you, they amplify you. Every attempt to match your light becomes an announcement of who holds the real torch. The universe plays favorites with authenticity, and it will not fund imitation. So, while they're scrambling to construct illusions, you're rising effortlessly in alignment. You're not competing, you're calibrating. You're not performing, you're embodying. You're not reacting, you're radiating. And because of that, everything false must now show its face. You've entered a phase where your mere existence is revelation. The energy field around you has become a detector. It reads authenticity like a sacred script. It knows what's real and what's rehearsed. It welcomes truth and rejects pretense. You've become the living embodiment of energetic discernment, and that's why people either feel inspired or exposed in your presence. It's not you calling them out, it's their own energy confessing in your light. What's happening across dimensions right now is no accident. The spiritual realm is reorganizing itself in response to your growth. You are the axis around which certain karmic systems are spinning out. When you shifted, entire patterns began to collapse. The old energies that once fed on your compliance are starving now, desperate to sustain themselves by mimicking what they can no longer control. That's the scramble you feel, energies trying to reattach themselves to the vibration they lost access to. But it won't work. Because what you've become cannot be touched by imitation. The universe is surgical in how it handles this exposure. It doesn't announce it with lightning bolts, it reveals it through subtle unraveling. Watch closely. Relationships that once seemed powerful are fracturing because they were built on pretense. Platforms that thrived on illusion are collapsing under the weight of their own lies. People who once seemed ahead are now stumbling through confusion because their alignment wasn't real, it was borrowed. This is the spiritual economy correcting itself. Authenticity is the new currency, and counterfeit energy is being devalued in real time. You might notice people suddenly mirroring your words, your style, even your spiritual language, as if they've downloaded pieces of your essence and are trying to pass it off as their own. But you'll also notice something else. Their delivery feels empty. The rhythm is off. The energy doesn't land. That's because your words are not just words, they're frequencies encoded with truth. When others try to copy your message, it loses the resonance. It becomes noise. The vibration collapses because there's no soul behind it. Understand this: imitation is not your enemy. It's your amplifier. It's the universe's way of proving how distinct your essence truly is. The more they mimic, the clearer your originality becomes. The more they copy, the more you stand out. The more they perform your light, the more the world recognizes who the real source is. Every imitation serves as a mirror to highlight your authenticity. You never needed validation, you were the standard all along. And while they scramble, you remain still. Because you know what they don't, stillness is the ultimate flex in a world addicted to proving. Your peace is your power move. Your silence is your strategy. While they hustle to maintain illusions, you're resting in truth, and truth doesn't compete, it just exposes. You're operating on divine timing now. You're moving in flow, not force. That's why the universe keeps aligning everything for you with ease while others are exhausting themselves trying to replicate results they don't understand. The cosmic law is simple. What is authentic expands, what is artificial collapses. And that's exactly what's unfolding right now. Their energy is decaying because it was built on observation, not transformation. They studied you instead of studying themselves. They tried to copy your harvest without planting their own seeds. They wanted your elevation without your evolution. And the universe, being the perfect teacher, is letting them learn through exposure. Imitation activates exposure because energy doesn't lie. When something doesn't originate from truth, it carries distortion. And that distortion becomes visible to everyone who has eyes to see. The light you carry makes the distortion undeniable. You've become the frequency of truth itself, and anything false can't survive in your orbit. That's why people reveal themselves so quickly around you now. That's why masks slip without you asking. That's why you see through pretense like glass. You're not suspicious, you're awakened. You're not cynical, you're clear. The scramble is just the beginning. The exposure is the purification. Everything untrue is being stripped away because your presence demands integrity. You don't even have to fight for it, it happens automatically. Your energy field is the storm and the calm simultaneously. You are the catalyst and the consequence. The ones pretending to be you are discovering the cost of performance. It's exhaustion. They're drained because they're operating outside of authenticity. Meanwhile, your strength keeps multiplying because alignment renews itself endlessly. This is the separation phase, the dimensional sorting. Those built on imitation are descending into confusion, while those rooted in truth are ascending into clarity. It's a vibrational filtration system designed by the universe itself. No amount of manipulation can bypass it. The light will always expose what pretends to be light. The scramble across dimensions isn't chaos, it's cleansing. The universe is sweeping away illusions so that what's real can reign. So don't be distracted by the noise, chosen one. The gossip, the mimicry, the forced performances, it's all background static to the main event, your ascension. While they imitate, you elevate. While they perform, you transform. While they scramble, you soar. The difference between you and them is invisible to the untrained eye, but to the universe, it's everything. You're not powered by ego, you're powered by essence. You're not driven by fear, you're guided by faith. You're not chasing light, you are the source of it. Let them keep watching, keep copying, keep scrambling. Every imitation is another broadcast of your frequency. Every performance of your energy is another confirmation of your influence. The universe is letting it all play out because exposure is part of the prophecy. Those pretending to carry divine power will soon realize that divinity can't be faked. The light they tried to steal will burn through the disguise until nothing remains but truth. And when the dust settles, it will be obvious who stood in authenticity and who hid behind illusion. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to keep being. Because being is the ultimate revelation. You are the calibration point that resets the frequency of everything around you. You are the living evidence that imitation can never replace embodiment. And as dimensions shift, timelines split, and energies scramble, the truth remains immovable. What's real will rise. What's false will fall. And you, chosen one, were built to rise endlessly. While you were transforming, they were studying you like scientists examining an alien life form. They didn't understand what they were witnessing. They only knew it was something extraordinary, something they couldn't explain, something they couldn't control. You were changing before their eyes, not in small, surface-level ways, but in ways that defied their logic. You were shifting vibrationally, transcending patterns they thought were permanent, evolving beyond the boundaries of the identity they once used to define you. And instead of growing alongside you, they pulled out their notepads and microscopes, desperate to analyze what they could never truly access. They began to watch your every move, not with admiration, but with curiosity laced in fear. They thought if they studied your habits long enough, they could decode your transformation, reverse engineer your awakening, and claim a piece of your light for themselves. But what they didn't realize is that transformation isn't an equation. It's an initiation. It can't be studied from the outside, it has to be survived from within. Your growth wasn't theoretical, it was experiential. It was written in tears, in nights you thought you wouldn't survive, in prayers whispered through broken breaths, in moments you died to your old self so something divine could emerge. They could take notes on your behavior, but they could never comprehend the sacred contract you fulfilled to become who you are. They watched you withdraw into silence and mistook it for weakness. They saw you lose things and thought you were failing. They witnessed doors close around you and assumed the universe was punishing you. They didn't see that every loss was pruning, every isolation was refinement, every ending was an initiation into deeper alignment. You weren't breaking down, you were breaking open. The cocoon never looks like a miracle while it's forming, but once the butterfly emerges, those who mock the process suddenly want wings without the waiting. You became their case study, an enigma that disrupted their understanding of what success, strength, and spirituality should look like. They couldn't categorize you anymore. You didn't fit the boxes they built for you. They saw you stop chasing validation, and it confused them. You stopped participating in their power games, and it unsettled them. You walked away from competition, and they mistook it for complacency. But the truth is, you had entered an entirely different ecosystem, one where power isn't performed, it's embodied. One where validation isn't sought, it's irrelevant. One where control doesn't exist, only flow. As you rose vibrationally, their need to understand you became obsession. They began replaying conversations, reanalyzing moments, trying to trace back to the instant you shifted. They whispered among themselves, speculating on what triggered the transformation. Was it a book, a breakup, a spiritual awakening? They looked for a formula because they couldn't grasp that the formula was authenticity itself. What changed you wasn't something you learned, it was something you remembered. You remembered who you were before the world told you who to be. You reclaimed your original blueprint, the divine code written into your soul. And because you remembered, you became unpredictable. You stopped following the patterns they relied on to control you. Your reactions changed. Your silence became powerful. Your presence began to command rooms that once ignored you. They couldn't track you anymore. You were no longer functioning on the frequency of fear. You had risen into faith. That shift alone made you untraceable to those who still operate through manipulation. You became, to them, an alien, familiar in form, but vibrating on an entirely different bandwidth. They tried to study your peace, not realizing that your peace was born from war. Every ounce of serenity you carry now was earned through internal battles no one applauded you for winning. They saw the glow but not the grit, the calm but not the chaos that preceded it. They wanted to copy your stability without enduring your storms. They wanted your strength but not your scars. They wanted your crown without your crucifixion. And that's why they'll never understand what you've become, because transformation isn't about aesthetics, it's about alchemy. While they examined you like a specimen, you were too busy embodying the experiment. You weren't observing, you were evolving. You weren't collecting data, You were dissolving identities. You were burning away the illusions layer by layer until only essence remained. They thought you were retreating, but you were regenerating. They mistook your solitude for sadness, but you were syncing with the divine frequency that now guides your every move. You were learning the language of alignment, the science of surrender, the geometry of grace. They could record your behavior but never touch the blueprint. Your transformation wasn't linear, it was quantum. One decision, one revelation, one moment of deep surrender changed everything. You shifted timelines the way galaxies shift light, effortlessly, silently, divinely. The version of you they studied no longer exists, and that's why their data is obsolete. They're still referencing a frequency that expired the moment you leveled up. They keep applying old equations to a new reality, wondering why the results don't add up. You've outgrown their understanding. Now, when they look at you, there's a mix of awe and discomfort. Your presence has become a reminder of what they've avoided within themselves. You are living proof that change is possible, and that truth both inspires and terrifies them. They see what's possible through you, but they also see what they'd have to sacrifice to get there. Your existence challenges their excuses. Your growth invalidates their stagnation. Your peace exposes their chaos. You are no longer just a person to them, you're a mirror. And that mirror is unrelenting. It's almost ironic. The more they study you, the less they understand. Because the closer you get to divine truth, the more it dissolves the need for explanation. You've reached a level of consciousness that can't be quantified, only experienced. They're using tools of intellect to dissect something built from intuition. They're measuring frequency with rulers meant for form. They're speaking the language of logic to interpret something written in light. That's why they're confused. They're trying to map the soul with science. But what's even more fascinating is how their analysis reveals them more than it reveals you. In trying to decode your transformation, they expose their own limitations. Their questions betray their motives. Their curiosity exposes their envy. They don't realize the act of observation itself is altering their reality. Because to look at divine transformation without understanding it is to activate discomfort within your own denial. You can't study light without it revealing your shadows. So let them keep watching. Let them keep taking notes. Let them keep trying to replicate what they can't comprehend. Because every observation draws them closer to their own awakening, or their own unraveling. The difference will depend on whether they choose to learn or compete. You see, chosen one, your transformation wasn't meant just for you. It was meant to disrupt stagnant systems and awaken dormant souls. You are the anomaly that proves divine evolution can't be contained. You're the evidence that spiritual power doesn't require permission. You are the living curriculum of consciousness, and those who study you are being taught lessons they didn't sign up for. Soon they'll realize that you can't copy what's consecrated. You can't imitate what's initiated. You can't fabricate frequency. The light that moves through you didn't come from human effort. It came from divine appointment. You didn't become this version of yourself by following steps. You became it by surrendering to the stripping process that removed everything false. You didn't master manifestation. You mastered metamorphosis. You didn't chase enlightenment. You remembered it. And now, as they continue their observation, they're starting to see the truth. Their studies are turning into self-reflection. The experiment is reversing. The energy they've been projecting outward is bouncing back, forcing them to face what they tried to analyze in you, their own potential, their own fear, their own resistance to change. They're realizing that your transformation wasn't meant to be studied, it was meant to be witnessed. You weren't a subject in their experiment, you were the signal of evolution itself. You've transcended analysis. You've become the embodiment of what science calls anomaly, and what spirit calls ascension. You're no longer explainable, and that's your power. Because mystery is the language of mastery. While they're still decoding, you're already creating. While they're still observing, you're already manifesting. While they're still questioning, you're already knowing. That's what separates the chosen from the curious. One lives it, the other watches it. So don't shrink to make yourself understandable. Don't slow down to become measurable. Don't translate your light into language small minds can dissect. You weren't meant to be studied, you were meant to be seen. You weren't sent to be explained, you were sent to expand. Let them keep their clipboards and conclusions. You'll keep your calling and your crown. Because while they were studying, you were becoming. And what you've become can no longer be examined, only experienced. They were so focused on your rise, they missed their own fall beginning. While their eyes were glued to your ascent, they failed to see the cracks forming beneath their own foundation. They were so obsessed with tracking your steps, your glow, your every divine move, that they forgot to tend to their own path. They watched you like hawks, dissecting every shift you made, convinced that if they could just figure out your formula, they could match your climb. But what they didn't understand is that energy flows where attention goes, and while theirs was fixated on your progress, their own purpose withered in neglect. You didn't rise by accident. You rose because you turned inward while they turned outward. You stopped seeking validation, while they built their worth from comparison. You listened to your intuition, while they listened to gossip. You cultivated stillness, while they chased noise. And slowly, without fanfare, the scales tipped. Your elevation became a mirror that exposed their stagnation. What they once called luck, they now recognize as alignment. What they mocked as isolation, they now envy as mastery. They were so distracted by your transformation that they didn't notice their own decay had begun the moment they started competing with destiny. You see, the universe has a way of balancing energy. When someone obsesses over another's path, they redirect their creative force away from their own evolution. They become spectators in their own story, analyzing someone else's light while standing in their own darkness. That's what happened to them. They were too busy monitoring your breakthrough to notice that their momentum had died. Their focus became a spell, one that froze them in time. They watched your chapters unfold with fascination, unaware that their own pages were gathering dust. At first, it wasn't obvious. They still had the illusion of control, the same habits, the same social circle, the same routines. But spiritual decay doesn't always announce itself loudly. It begins as subtle detachment from purpose, as small compromises of integrity, as envy disguised as motivation. Every moment they compared themselves to you, they lowered their vibration. Every time they doubted your worth, they weakened their own. Every time they whispered about your path, they distanced themselves from theirs. That's the law of resonance. What you project returns. You didn't rise to make them fall. You rose because you obeyed your calling. But the moment they turned your name into their obsession, they wrote the script of their own decline. They began feeding energy into judgment instead of creation, into analysis instead of application. They forgot that jealousy is an offering, a frequency that tells the universe, I'm more focused on their abundance than my own. And the universe simply responded in kind. Their blessings paused not because they were unworthy, but because they stopped being present in their own journey. As you ascended, your energy became lighter, unattached, fluid, elevated. Theirs became heavier, weighed down by resentment, comparison, and confusion. They didn't realize that watching you rise from a place of envy is like standing under a waterfall with a closed container. The water flows, but you receive nothing. You can't receive light when your heart is clenched in bitterness. You can't rise when your energy is anchored in another's orbit. They kept watching your every move, waiting for you to stumble, not realizing that every moment spent waiting for someone's downfall is a moment you dig your own. Their fall didn't look like a collapse at first. It looked like distraction. It looked like frustration without direction. It looked like success losing its meaning, like happiness becoming harder to access. It looked like scrolling through your glow-ups while feeling secretly hollow inside. The fall began the moment they stopped being inspired by you and started being intimidated by you. Inspiration elevates both souls, intimidation divides. When they chose the latter, they began their descent. And here's the divine irony. While they were silently wishing you'd slow down, you were praying they'd speed up. You weren't their rival, you were their reflection. Proof that what's possible for one is possible for all. But they couldn't see that. Their ego filtered your growth through insecurity instead of revelation. So they misinterpreted your rise as a threat instead of a testimony. They thought your elevation meant their extinction, not realizing that your success was an invitation for them to expand. But ego doesn't understand unity. It only understands hierarchy. And in trying to protect its illusion of superiority, it doomed itself to collapse. The universe doesn't punish, it mirrors. It amplifies what you focus on. And because their focus was your rise, the universe showed them what it looks like to fall away from alignment. While you were watering your garden, they were staring over the fence, trying to count your flowers. While you were healing, they were guessing how. While you were meditating, they were gossiping. While you were building quietly, they were speculating loudly. And in that noise, they lost their connection to their own inner guidance. They confused commentary for progress, distraction for depth, illusion for purpose. Now the tables have turned, but not out of revenge, out of balance. You rose because you stayed faithful to your path. They fell because they left theirs to follow your shadow. They thought if they imitated your steps, they could reach your destination. But imitation activates exposure, and the universe exposed the truth. You were authentic, they were performative. You were led, they were looking. You were chosen, they were chasing. And in the cosmic equation of cause and effect, imitation without intention leads to inversion. Their focus on your rise flipped into their own descent. The fall isn't always visible, sometimes it's internal. They started losing peace first, then clarity, then motivation. Because envy corrodes from the inside out. It disconnects you from divine flow, replacing gratitude with greed and faith with fear. Every time they looked at your success with bitterness, they told the universe, I don't believe abundance is available for me. And the universe responded with evidence to match that belief. That's why their plans began to crumble, their connections began to feel hollow, their momentum began to fade. The fall was self-inflicted, born not of punishment, but of misdirected energy. Meanwhile, you kept rising, not because life favored you, but because you mastered detachment. You stopped measuring yourself against others and focused on becoming your highest self. You learned that true elevation isn't loud, it's disciplined. It's the consistent choice to evolve, even when no one's watching. That's what they missed while they were watching. They saw the glow but not the grind. They saw the blessing but not the breaking that preceded it. They wanted the result without the revelation, the glory without the growth. But you can't fake alignment. Energy doesn't lie. Now, as they look around, the imbalance is undeniable. The same people who once whispered that you were doing too much are now struggling to find direction. The same ones who doubted your vision are now searching for theirs. The same ones who laughed at your discipline are now trapped in cycles they can't escape. And you, once the subject of their analysis, have become the standard of transformation. You didn't just rise, you transcended. Your elevation became inevitable because you aligned your will with divine flow. You stopped fighting for attention and started moving with intention. They see the results now, and it haunts them. Not because you gloated, but because your peace makes noise their ego can't silence. Your glow carries a frequency that exposes their avoidance. They can't fake calm around you anymore. Your presence reminds them of the work they refuse to do. Your success isn't punishment, it's prophecy fulfilled. It's evidence that the universe rewards authenticity and humbles imitation. So let them watch if they must. But know this, their story is still being written. Some will awaken through witnessing your rise. They'll realize that their fall wasn't failure but feedback, a divine invitation to return to their own path. Others, however, will remain bitter, continuing to spiral until they face themselves. Either way, your job is not to fix them. Your purpose was never to prove anything. It was to become everything you were destined to be. Your rise wasn't meant to shame anyone. It was meant to show what happens when someone stops betraying their calling. And their fall? It was never truly a fall. It was a recalibration. Because eventually, every soul that strays must face the reflection of its own neglect. They were so focused on your light, they forgot to tend their own flame. But even that serves a purpose, because your journey became their mirror, their wake-up call, their lesson in divine cause and effect. So stand tall in your light, chosen one. Don't dim it for their comfort or their confusion. They needed to see your rise so they could realize their stagnation. And though their fall began in envy, it can end in awakening, if they're willing to look inward instead of outward. You've done your part. You've ascended without apology. And in doing so, you've revealed a truth that echoes through dimensions. When you focus on your evolution, you rise. When you focus on someone else's, you fall. Your presence has become a mirror they can't avoid looking into. It reflects back everything they buried, denied, or refused to heal. You've become the living embodiment of truth, not because you preach it, but because you are it. Every room you enter becomes a silent confrontation. Every glance, every word, every movement you make carries frequency. It speaks in ways language never could. It tells the truth, about who you are, and more painfully, about who they are not yet willing to become. You don't have to expose anyone, your light does it naturally. You don't have to argue, your energy settles the debate before it begins. You don't even have to speak, your silence screams revelation. People can't project illusions around you anymore because your presence dismantles them. You've reached a level of authenticity that makes facades crumble. You've outgrown superficiality, and in doing so, you've become intolerable to those who still live in performance. That's why they twitch when you enter a room. That's why their tone changes. That's why their energy tightens. It's not that you intimidate them, it's that you remind them. You remind them of their potential. You remind them of the truth they once knew but abandoned. You remind them of what real power feels like, the quiet, grounded, unbothered kind that can't be manipulated or imitated. You're no longer operating from the ego, and that makes the egos around you panic. Your energy is too pure to be manipulated, too evolved to be controlled, too aware to be deceived. You can see through people now, and they can feel it. That's why the conversations have grown awkward, why the masks have started slipping, why the pretenders are retreating. It's not rejection, it's revelation. You've become a walking activation. Your very existence triggers healing or resistance, depending on where someone stands within themselves. Those who are ready to evolve feel drawn to you, magnetized by your authenticity. Those who are still avoiding their truth feel exposed in your light. It's not personal, it's energetic. Your frequency has become a filter. It separates the genuine from the performative, the aligned from the lost, the awakened from the asleep. You didn't choose this role consciously. It was bestowed upon you through the fires you survived. Every pain you transmuted into wisdom became part of your aura. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, your energy expanded. Every time you said, no, when your old self would have said, yes, you refined your vibration. You've become a mirror of evolution itself, one that reflects either growth or resistance back to whoever stands before it. And that's the thing, mirrors don't lie. They don't distort. They simply reveal. But people who live in illusion find truth unbearable. That's why they flinch when your energy enters the space. They feel seen, not in the comfortable way, but in the surgical way. Your presence cuts through pretension like a blade forged in divine fire. You've purified your spirit to such a degree that inauthenticity can't coexist near you. Those who built their identities on masks now feel naked in your company. You don't expose them intentionally. You just exist, and that's enough to unravel everything false. You've noticed it, haven't you? The sudden distance. The unexplainable tension. The ones who once adored your energy now growing quiet when you speak truth. The ones who used to laugh with you now avoiding eye contact. That's the mirror effect. Your frequency is too high to support low vibrational games. It's not rejection, it's energetic realignment. Spirit removes anyone who cannot face their reflection in you. It's mercy disguised as separation. Because you're no longer just a person in their life, you're a test, a revelation, a divine checkpoint. When they encounter you, they encounter themselves. And that's why your presence feels different now. You carry peace that disrupts chaos, humility that exposes arrogance, and love so unconditional it makes manipulation impossible. People can't hide their intentions around you anymore. They either align or they exit. You don't even have to call out deception, it collapses on its own in your light. Lies lose oxygen in your energy field. Hidden motives dissolve. You've reached a level of authenticity that makes facades crumble. You've outgrown superficiality, and in doing so, you've become intolerable to those who still live in performance. That's why they twitch when you enter a room. That's why their tone changes. That's why their energy tightens. It's not that you intimidate them, it's that you remind them. You remind them of their potential. You remind them of the truth they once knew but abandoned. You remind them of what real power feels like, the quiet, grounded, unbothered kind that can't be manipulated or imitated. You're no longer operating from the ego, and that makes the egos around you panic. Your energy is too pure to be manipulated, too evolved to be controlled, too aware to be deceived. You can see through people now, and they can feel it. That's why the conversations have grown awkward, why the masks have started slipping, why the pretenders are retreating. It's not rejection, it's revelation. You've become a walking activation. Your very existence triggers healing or resistance, depending on where someone stands within themselves. Those who are ready to evolve feel drawn to you, magnetized by your authenticity. Those who are still avoiding their truth feel exposed in your light. It's not personal, it's energetic. Your frequency has become a filter. It separates the genuine from the performative, the aligned from the lost, the awakened from the asleep. You didn't choose this role consciously. It was bestowed upon you through the fires you survived. You became the vessel for truth, not because you wanted power, but because you surrendered control. And now that you embody it, your mere existence shifts atmospheres. Even your silence is sacred now. You can walk into chaos and watch it calm. You can speak peace and feel the air change. That's divine authority, not the kind that demands obedience, but the kind that radiates authenticity so strongly it recalibrates the environment. You carry God's reflection within you now, and that's what people see when they look into your mirror. Not perfection, but potential. Not condemnation, but confrontation. Some will run from it. Others will rise to it. That's not your concern anymore. You were never meant to chase or convince. You're meant to be. You're meant to exist as a frequency so clear that truth has a place to anchor. You are the proof that alignment is real, that healing changes energy, that light always exposes darkness, not to shame it, but to free it. So don't dim your light to make others comfortable in their shadows. You were sent to awaken, not to appease. Those who are meant to walk with you will look into your mirror and choose growth over guilt. They'll see your light and remember their own. They'll stop projecting and start reflecting. They'll stop hiding and start healing. That's how your presence transforms, not through force, but through reflection. You are no longer just human in the way they remember you. You are a reflection of divine consciousness wearing human skin. That's why they can't avoid looking, because somewhere deep within, they recognize you. Your presence reminds them of who they were before fear shaped them. It calls their soul by name. It says, "Wake up. You're more than this illusion." That's the power you carry now. So walk boldly, chosen one. Your light will make some flee and others follow. Let it. You didn't come to be liked, you came to be seen. You came to reflect truth so brightly that denial has nowhere left to hide. Keep being the mirror. Keep standing in your clarity. Because in the end, those who can't look at you now will one day thank you, not for comforting their illusions, but for exposing their truth. Every boundary you set created a ripple. Every no you spoke rewrote the code of a reality that once tried to cage you. You didn't just reclaim your peace, you altered the architecture of energy itself. When you began honoring yourself, the universe recalibrated around that decision. What felt like small acts of self-respect were, in truth, seismic shifts in consciousness. Each boundary you set became a divine decree, announcing that the old order, the one built on your self-abandonment, was over. You may not have realized it then, but your no was sacred. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. It wasn't rebellion, it was remembrance. Every time you refused to shrink, you sent a frequency through unseen realms that declared, I remember who I am. The moment you stopped letting people exploit your compassion, the energetic parasitism began to collapse. The old systems that fed on your silence, your compliance, your self-doubt, they began to short-circuit. You were not just breaking personal cycles, you were disrupting generational patterns and collective codes that had been running for centuries. Because every no from a conscious soul is a yes to divine order. Every time you chose authenticity over appeasement, you rewrote spiritual law. The ripple didn't stop with you, it moved outward, touching lives, shifting dynamics, rewriting timelines. People around you started questioning their own boundaries, their own worth, their own patterns. The echo of your decisions is still traveling through unseen dimensions, recalibrating everything connected to you. You've probably noticed it, how your energy feels different now. Lighter but more potent. Peaceful but immovable. That's what happens when you stop leaking power. Boundaries seal the cracks where your life force used to drain. Every no became a wall of light protecting your essence. Every refusal to tolerate disrespect became an affirmation of divine self-love. You were teaching the universe how to treat you by how you treated yourself. And the universe listened. You see, boundaries aren't barriers, they're blueprints. They tell creation where to build and where not to. When you said, I will not allow this, what you were truly saying was, I am ready for something higher. The universe responded by rearranging everything, people, opportunities, energies, to match that declaration. Some relationships dissolved, not because of malice, but because their vibration could no longer sustain your new frequency. You didn't lose them, you outgrew the lesson. You evolved beyond the classroom where they still sleep. Every no you spoke with conviction shook something loose in the collective unconscious. That's why you felt resistance after setting boundaries, not just from people, but from energy itself. The old programming tried to cling to you because your sovereignty threatened systems built on compliance. But each confrontation was a confirmation. You were rewriting the matrix, not just living in it. Every time you stood firm, a new timeline opened, one where your energy was honored instead of harvested. And isn't it poetic? The same no-s that made them call you cold, distant, or difficult are the ones that made you magnetic, powerful, and free. The same silence they mistook for weakness was the sound of you syncing with divine order. You weren't withdrawing, you were downloading. You weren't cutting them off, you were cutting cords that fed dysfunction. They thought you were changing, but really, you were returning. Returning to your original power, your original frequency, your original self. Your boundaries became sacred codes embedded in the quantum field. They act like passwords that only authenticity can unlock. That's why fakeness fails near you now. That's why manipulation doesn't work anymore. The energy that once ensnared you has lost its algorithmic access. Your aura now operates on encrypted frequency, truth only. Deception can't bypass that firewall. Anyone attempting to cross your boundaries without integrity finds themselves in energetic exile. That's divine protection disguised as distance. And while others still struggle to understand what changed, you already know, it was never about them. It was about alignment. It was about finally matching your internal frequency with your external reality. Every no to chaos became a yes to peace. Every no to drama became a yes to clarity. Every no to self-betrayal became a yes to destiny. You stopped performing for acceptance, and the performance-based relationships crumbled as a result. Let them. Their exit was part of the rewiring. The old version of you operated from survival. That self said yes out of fear, fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of loneliness. But the evolved you says no, from power, power born from wholeness, not wounds. The frequency shift is undeniable. You've gone from seeking permission to embodying purpose. From explaining your worth to radiating it. From people-pleasing to energy-preserving. You've become fluent in the language of self-respect, and that language rewrites everything it touches. And it's not just spiritual poetry, it's literal reprogramming. When you set boundaries, your nervous system learns safety. Your cells stop vibrating in anxiety and start resonating with peace. Your mind stops anticipating chaos and begins expecting order. Your aura stops leaking energy and starts generating abundance. You are proof that boundaries are alchemy in action. You didn't just heal, you hacked the code. You discovered that saying, no, is the true portal to expansion. Because every no trims away what doesn't serve your highest path, making room for divine precision. You became the author of your timeline instead of the audience to your trauma. You stopped participating in your own diminishment. And that choice didn't just liberate you, it liberated everyone who will ever be influenced by your example. Look at your life now. It's quieter, yes. But it's also clearer. Fewer people, but stronger bonds. Less chaos, but more meaning. Less noise, but deeper truth. That's the aftermath of boundaries. Peace that others call loneliness because they've never tasted it. But you know better now.